Good evening. Leaders are bold. Leaders are decision makers. Leaders are liberators. But leaders can also be overworked, overburdened, and overthinkers. I want to talk tonight about leadership and also about the long game. So, what do I mean by the long game? The long game has to do with what is your legacy and what is the long term impact of your career? What is it that people will say about you after you've finished your career? If you are pre retirement, maybe you just started your life of what people will remember you for 5, 10, 20 years down the road in your career. It is common in academia that we change positions a lot, sometimes changing institutions. I had the blessing and maybe even the burden of being in the same institution for 16 plus years. I was in higher education altogether for 20 years, but 16 at one institution. And within those 16 years, I spent 9 years in one college and 7 years in another college. So the long game for me was not a concept that I was familiar with. The long game for me really was something that came about because of burnout and exhaustion. Honestly, I am more aware now than ever before that I really started thinking about my legacy when I started traveling and I started taking time to rest. But wait, I don't think I introduced myself. So this is Sabbatical Life with Dr. Crystal. I have a podcast called After Academic Life with Dr. Crystal, and I'm Dr. Crystal Harris. I am a new semi-retired professor. I'm retired completely from teaching full-time in higher education in a tenure track position, but I still consider what I do part of an academic life. I am transitioning between what I would say my second and third career. Some would say third and fourth. I am started my career in engineering and project management in the 1990s. I spent 10 years in corporate America. I transitioned to my second career, which was to be a stay-at-home mom. Didn't last very long, but it was still a career. And during that time, I did a number of entrepreneurial things, including ran a tutoring business. So I went to get my doctorate and then decided I wanted to teach as opposed to being in clinical practice. And now my transition is really between what I would say a traditional formal academic career where I'm in the classroom teaching classes to a coaching practice. I do career coaching and leadership coaching primarily with people who are in transition into an academic career or who are trying to decide if they are staying in an academic career and moving up the tenure track or staying where they are. I was a lecturer for 9 years before I entered the tenure track. So I started this channel actually a year ago, maybe now. And I started this channel honestly because I really wanted to find a space for faculty of color, particularly Black faculty. We're going to be talking about the issues that were going on in higher education. And in the midst of all of that, my mental health took a nosedive because of my experiences in higher education. And I never really got a chance to move forward in building a YouTube community the way I wanted to. And so what happened after that was I decided to step down from my leadership position in higher education and really start leaning into, well, I'm only going to be here. I knew I was going to retire early. I was not yet 55. And I said, well, if I'm only going to be in higher education 2 or 3 more years, I just want to go full out on the stuff I love and the stuff I want to do. I feel that I was very successful in the classroom because I love teaching students. I love talking to students, mentoring students, and students really, I don't know, maybe always, but students really need someone to know that they care. So I think my leadership style in the classroom is very much relational. And outside of the classroom, I had a research team as a social psychologist, as well as what I would say a civic engagement movement of college students that I was a leader for. And I care a lot about voting and voter education, voter engagement, civic engagement, and service learning. So those were the buckets of things that I was really passionate about, that if you ask people now, what my name is associated with at that institution, it's definitely the student voting movement. And I did a number of things, internal and external, to the campus to move that ball forward in a way that I'm very proud of. That being said, I knew that it was still time for me to go. I think there's something really important when you think about your legacy, to think about not only what do you want people to say about you, but what do you want to say about yourself? How do you want to feel when you decide that you're running your last play? I don't know why I'm into football analogies today. But as you know, because this channel is called Sabbatical Life, taking a sabbatical for a year was something that I've been working towards the whole year leading up to my retirement in June. And now that I have finished the first leg of my retirement, I was gone for a little over 4 months in Europe, Western Europe. I was in the United Kingdom, Spain, and France. And during that time, I had, especially on the second half, a lot of downtime, spending daily walks on the beach, listening to waves in a fishing village off season where nobody spoke really good English. I would say most people spoke no English, and the handful of people who spoke English would say, "Oh, I don't speak good English." My Spanish is not that good, but I survived. So, because of that, I spent a lot of time writing, reading, and journaling and walking. And I came to a certain amount of clarity about what I wanted to do next. And so, I have a clearer vision of what I want my next chapter, my next legacy to be. And so, I'm really leaning into asking other people, how do you feel your legacy will be? And are you even thinking about what your legacy will be like when you leave higher education? So I love teaching and connecting with students. One of the main barriers to me being, in my opinion, as effective as I wanted to be or desired to be, in terms of creating, I loved creating courses, creating modules, creating experiences for students, and I thought I was really good at it. But it's hard when you are teaching too many classes and have too many academic responsibilities out that are non-teaching related to really excel in the areas where you might find the most satisfaction and joy. In fact, I would argue that academic careers are not really designed for us to thrive and have joy and contentment and satisfaction. That's not on anybody's list of priorities. How many classes can you teach? Can you cover this? Can you cover that? Can you be in this community? That is what is on most leaders' minds. And having been in sort of a program coordinator role, which is a leadership role from an administrative standpoint, I can honestly say that I don't feel that even people who are in leadership roles, as they go up the food chain, really get to think about like what they want their legacy to be, what they want to be remembered for, and what they want their impact to be. And so I think that is something else that really has to change, because all of us deserve to be satisfied. The dean of the college, the president of the university, they also deserve to feel like the impact they're making is the impact they want to make, and that they have some degrees of freedom to really move the ball forward in the lane they want to, and in a lane that is in alignment with their core values and their gifts and their strengths. And anyway, so that's a whole nother live, not where we're going today. But the decision to think about your legacy and what it is and what you want it to be and what that gap is something that I'm really pushing for in this video, you to think more about. You don't want to be, I'm not saying you are, but do you want to be that professor who is rushed and tired and underprepared and overworked and cranky and irritable, at home or at work? Because sometimes, like, you might manage to hold it together at work, but your family and friends are getting like the worst of you. So that's something else to think about. So to me, a legacy is what people remember about you when you're gone. And that's if they remember you at all. I'm saying they might remember you, but what they remember about you is not what you really are thinking you want to be remembered for. And so, as I said last week, Leaders are people who have power and influence, who are willing to use that power and influence to change things and to impact systems for other people. That's the work of liberation. That's kind of like one of my ahas for this season in November. And so I'm really sharing that with everybody. But leaders are also people who care about their legacy and recognize that we can't do everything well. We have to look at our time and energy and our resource as resources that are sacred. And just like you have a to-do list, you have to go back through the to-do list and say, what is on my to-don't list? And I intentionally, because I'm a list maker, I will show you my list. I don't think you can see it here. These are my notes for today. But this is the book, and I have one every month where I literally put down a list of sometimes 27 things. When I'm really excited at the beginning of the month, I actually do a digital list so that I can click it off, and I kind of go back and forth. Because if something comes to me in the middle of the day, I'm not going to put it on the digital list. I'm going to put it here. But I have learned that once I make that list, I will then go back and cross things off or put a date by it, which means I'm going to move it over to another list. So it's no longer something I'm doing today. And then I will go through, I'm a person who loves highlighters and colored pens. So, and then I will go through with the highlighter and put down the things, the number, I will circle the numbers of the things that I'm actually going to really get done today. And so that's a way of saying that this is a high priority item and I need to make sure that it gets done. And what I also try to do is in the middle of the day, which now that I'm semi-retired, I'm only really working 5 hours a day. I will say that if I want to do something earlier or later than the scheduled blocks that I'm creating and coaching and editing, work that I'm working on, projects that I'm working on, I will give myself a requirement to take a break. And in the midst of that break, I will say, hey, I have to make sure that I reassess the list. Because after I've gone, say, 4 hours, let's say I had 5 things on the list and 3 of them are done, but I did more on one of them than I had intended to do because I was sort of in that zone, or maybe somebody called me back and I really need a collaborator on that. And they gave me some great insights. I really wanted to kind of push that, stay in that lane longer and do like deep work. So then I'll go back and say, you know what, the other 2, I'm going to call it quits. Or maybe I'm going to do something really superficial or easy to set that item up so that tomorrow when I am assigned to kind of sit, this is my little temporary office, I'll be able to move the ball forward in a very strategic way because I've kind of set up everything I need to do. So legacy is about making sure that how we're spending our time and energy is the things that we're intentional about doing. Legacy doesn't happen by accident. Well, actually, that's probably not true. Actually, you're going to have a legacy and be remembered in most cases by somebody for something. The question is it what you want it to be remembered by, if you want to be remembered? And even that's your family, they're going to have, because you have memories of people who've passed on and gone on into the afterlife. And they're not all great stories. There's a handful of people that, we don't have good stories. So I'm just saying that, our legacy is being created day by day, whether we're being intentional about it and putting some directive action into making it happen. For a lot of people, their guiding light is not a core value around legacy or integrity or something like that. Their guiding value is making as much money as possible. There's nothing wrong with making money. Money is an important tool and an important resource to be able to get the things that we want to get done, or have the experiences we want to have, or design a life to support other people that we care about and love. However, money for the sake of money, you can't take it with you, and it's not, you have no control or no say over what people do with the money once you are not in this world. So we can't afford to squander our career or squander our legacy. And so I'm encouraging you to think about, what is the one thing that you want your legacy to be about, and how does that integrate with your core values and what you want in terms of your mission and vision for your life? Excuse me. So that's a writing prompt. If you're a journaler, as I am, sometimes it's really helpful when I'm watching a YouTube video to kind of write down a prompt to say, what's the call to action? The call to action here is to think about in 2024, what have you accomplished that contributed to your legacy? What did you not accomplish that would contribute to your legacy? Do you need to redefine or reimagine what your legacy could be and what you want to get done in 2025 to accomplish that? Going back to the sabbatical a few years ago, that's my timer to tell me that I've been talking too long to you. So my goal was to have a sabbatical and travel the world. I had a chance to travel one region of the world, right? Western Europe. And next, in 2025, I'm going to do two more regions. I'm going to be in Central America and Mexico in the first half. And in the second half, I'm hopeful. I'm trying to figure out if I can be in the continent of Africa. And so my legacy around learning Spanish has always been because I thought I might want to live in a Spanish-speaking country. And so I have been pushing that ball gently forward while I was teaching, 7, 8 classes a year in my academic career and running the department and doing things. I would do just little things to keep Spanish in or near my brain. And so people who know me know I've been working on Spanish for a really long time. They're like, you're not fluent yet? No, I'm not even close. And being in Spain taught me that for sure. And so I want to close by giving you like a really practical tip besides the journaling, and that's to talk about The Long Game, which is a book by Dorie Clark, who is a professor, consultant, writer, TEDx speaker, all the things. You can Google her. So in The Long Game, there's a chapter on networking. There's actually several decent chapters. One of the things I decided not to do because of how overworked academics are is I am not going to start saying, oh, you should read this, you should read that, you should watch this, you should watch that. I don't want to be that type of YouTuber. The reality is there's so many ways to get information on the nuggets in a book that you don't have to actually read all the books. Now, as academics, you probably already own 20 books that you are supposedly about to read. If you're like me, I read pretty much 3 books at any given time. And then I have the next up crowd, which might be 3 to 5 books that are also read. Even when I traveled the world with 5 books, some of which I didn't start reading till I was on the leg. The last one of which I started reading on the leg home. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So you might even have a copy of The Long Game, but The Long Game is one of several books that she's written, but it's the one I'm most familiar with. And I love the title of it because, as you know, I'm in a season of thinking a lot about legacy and the future of my career. And therefore, this idea around networking really resonates with me in the long game, because if you're going to achieve what you want to achieve in the long game, you're going to have friends, allies, supporters, sponsors, and be that for other people. Being in community is how we thrive. Last week, I had my tagline was "We Thrive Together," and I talked about the Lead and Liberate community. And the reason for that is I'm at a point in my career after, 20 plus years as an academic of really recognizing that I have to be in community with other people to get things done, whether that's planning a sabbatical, whether that's saving, whether that's paying down debt. And even in things that I know, like skills I know that I've nailed and I'm really good at it, I still love doing them in community because I love being able to appreciate other people. Oh, thank you, Golden Black Girl. Thank you, Golden Black 189 for joining. Appreciate that. Happy Wednesday to you. So Dorie Clark's book, the chapter on networking, talks about 3 types of networking: short-term, long-term, and what she calls infinite horizon networking, which I would just call being like real authentic relationships. Which means that at the time that it starts, you don't have a goal or an agenda. To me, that's my interpretation of that. So according to Dorie Clark, short-term networking is bad and we shouldn't even engage in it. And what's funny is that, I think most of the networking that we do in higher education is short-term networking. And also in corporate, I haven't been in corporate America in 20 years. But when I was there, we did that too. Like, we need somebody to handle X. We get on the phone and we find the person that has the skill to do X and that has done X successfully before. We get them on the phone and we cajole them into doing that X for us or for the department or for the institution or what have you. And I think about how many times someone I barely knew or that got my name from somebody said, hey, I know you're really good at such and such. I know that you've done such and such before. Would wonder if you would get on the committee for, lead the committee for, lead the charge for, document document such and such, handle such and such. So I think short-term networking is primarily transactional, and it's how we do everything. Another example would be long-term networking, and I think we do, so anything we do that's not short-term is then long-term, right? And it's not even really, honestly, like that long-term, because think about it. We build relationships with students, and students build relationships with us because we know we're going to have an opening on our research team. They know they're going to need a letter of recommendation. They know they're going to need an internship, or whatever it may be, or a work study job. So a lot of times when you're building relationships with students or even colleagues, it could be a grant, it could be a publication, it could be a conference. You are going to work with someone with the understanding that you have similar interests, similar skill sets, and you know that at some point in the future, there will be a transaction. So long-term means that you're not like having the conversation or having the discussion because it's transactional now. That would be short-term, but you know that your paths are going a similar way, or they're going to cross. Cross. And so that's why you are investing in the relationship. And by investing, I mean taking the person's calls, encouraging them, being supportive, getting to know them. I'm a person who doesn't remember stuff, so a lot of times for students or colleagues that I want to continue to work with, I keep notes or files of things that I want to do. And so I have another comment. Even though I'm not an academic, this topic makes me think heavily about sisters like you with education and life skills can potentially be more focused on Black children and the rise of homeschool. I'm sorry, I think the rise of the homeschool. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm a college educator. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to come back to that. I have one more thing that I want to cover just to make sure that the video is complete in terms of what I promised to teach. And the next thing is what she calls infinite horizon networking. And although she is an academic, this book is for the popular society, popular audience, popular, I don't know what you call that, but basically it's not a self-help book, but it's a career book for everybody. And so popular audience, that's the word I wanted to say. However, she's using, and she doesn't even use that many examples that are from academia. I am choosing to put this book in the academic context because that tends to be my audience. And so infinite horizon, as I said, is basically having an authentic relationship. There's no reason for you to build a relationship with this person. There's no reason for you to get to know this person. You just are genuinely, there's something about their energy, their vibe that you guys just decide you're going to stay in touch. And I have a wonderful example of this. I was at a conference. It might have even been a hybrid or a virtual conference. It was sponsored by a journal that I wanted to be published in. And this young woman and I were in breakout groups. It was a big audience. Let's say it was 50 plus academics. I'm not in that discipline, but I thought this particular topic would go well with this particular journal, which is why I decided to attend. So we ended up in a breakout room together, got to talking, exchanged information. Come to find out, she was looking for someone who had an interest in qualitative research or had that as a skill set. And I decided that I would stay in touch with her and maybe offer to help. And I knew I had plenty to do and didn't need to be helpful to her in this way, but I decided to be helpful to her in this way because I liked that she was, first of all, we had a lot of conversation about the fact that I had been to Mexico, wanted to go back, was learning Spanish and doing a bad job. So we were in the breakout group doing all the things outside of what we had been assigned to work on. In fact, I have no idea what we were assigned to work on to this day. Well, I don't know that we ever did it. But we became friends, stayed in touch. And in fact, I did work with her on this project. And I ended up being a co-author with her on this project that she published. And the reality is I felt like it was fun because we didn't have to be working together. We were working together because we just kind of gelled and liked each other. And what she needed help doing, I knew that I could do it in an afternoon or an evening, that it wouldn't take me very, very long to analyze the data. And I ended up doing qualitative interviews with some of her students, and that was a great experience. Her research focused on Latino students, which I had never done any work with Latino students. So it was a great opportunity for me to do something that was helpful in terms of my skill set, but needed from someone else's, vantage point. And so that's what I think infinite horizon networking can be. And it's not that you have to even do anything. It's that you put yourself in a situation to interact and network and get to know people who you don't need to get to know. You don't have to get to know, and you have no idea if it will ever pan into anything. But I'm so glad that I did. I didn't know anything about infinite networking, infinite horizon networking. But when you look at your career and your legacy on the infinite horizon, you will see that there will be lots of relationships that when you look back on it, that really blessed you and gave you energy and life to kind of keep going and kept you inspired, that were not relationships that you intended to cultivate and that you thought would have the significant role that they do in your life. And so that's basically where I had intended to end this live stream. But I do want to talk a little bit before I end about Golden Black 189's point about what's going on in our society right now. And I'll be very honest with you. I came from an HBCU. My kids are grown. My daughter has the desire to homeschool. She has no children. But we've talked about this. And one of the good things I think that came out of the election as a Black woman and a Black faculty member is that I think we may now have the impetus that we need to go back to creating spaces that are for us and by us. And by that, I mean, education is a great example of how there's all this talent, in every ethnic group, right? That is really being squandered and not taken advantage of because so many people are struggling and facing, barriers. Your energy is tied up into fighting the system and fighting the bias and proving again and again that you're good enough. When in fact you couldn't even gotten hired if you weren't good enough. If you were not all that in a bag of chips, they would have never pulled your interview. They wouldn't, having been on a faculty interviews, you wouldn't have been interviewed. You wouldn't have gotten the phone call. You wouldn't have gotten the email, the second interview, the on-campus interview, wouldn't have gotten the job. So you're definitely everything you need to be and more. But there's something about the system and the way it's wired that keeps us sort of on that rat race, running, proving myself. So I really want us to stop and to start thinking about how do we stop squandering our talent on these folks who are exploiting us, and look at how do we peel back that energy and those resources that are our brain cells and put them into things that are going to benefit our own community, our own people, and especially our own children. So I don't know much about little kids and homeschooling, but I love working with teenagers and young adults. I love creating curriculum. But I think this can be a safe space for us to have those conversations about how do we be in the system, but not be all the way in the system. Because I think we have a tendency to think, well, if I give them 120%, they're going to give me what I deserve. And I have found that that is rarely the case. There are some exceptions. And sometimes even when they do give people their just due, what I notice is that it's like so many years that they have been grinding before they finally get lifted up into that sort of prized position of acknowledged for all the greatness that they are. We just, for whatever reason, don't seem to be on their minds when it's time to give out the easy jobs or the awards or the accolades. But I've only been in really, really close to 2 institutions. So I may find that as I get to know other academics who are in other institutions, that I'm entirely wrong. And I will be the first to show up and apologize that, in fact, Black academics around the country have been well treated and well paid and well recognized. So we'll see. I would love to apologize for being incorrect on that subject. So I am going to close by just reminding you that I have openings available for the next 4 months. If you need a career coach, whether you're an academic or not, or leadership coach, I'm available and I would love to meet with you. I'm doing free discovery calls for 30 minutes right now if you want to see if we would be a good fit to help you work through whatever transition you're going through in your career. And I also encourage you to check the link for the Lead and Liberate academic leadership community. It's basically a group similar to a group coaching program. So there's going to be training every week. There's engagement activities, but it's really a supportive space for interdisciplinary networking around leadership and professional development. And I just really am excited to be launching it. Our launch party is on Friday, January the 3rd. I'll be doing 2 free workshops as marketing events. And so next Wednesday when I come on, I'll have details about those. One is on Monday, the 16th. And one is on Friday, December 27th. So I will post information about that here on YouTube. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.